Hello, everyone. Welcome to Two Bye Guys. I am here with a special guest today who I met recently at the HOW conference, the annual gathering for husbands out to wives. And I just was really fascinated by his story that he shared that weekend. And then we kind of set up a little oral history Zoom, kind of like when I did my book, and I was just really interested in people's stories, and I wasn't sure why. And so we've been chatting, and I thought his story would be an interesting one to share here for various reasons. It's both quite unique and also has many of the same themes that we have always talked about. Welcome to Two Bye Guys, Doug Moffitt. Hello.
Hi, Rob. And one of the things that you can either accept or deny is that I think I noted a similarity between your progress and mine. And mine's a little more condensed in time, but you talked about being sort of the straight guy. I don't mean straight in the gay sense. I mean in the social sense, and coming out and being now Rob doing the podcast and doing stand-up comedy and all that stuff. I haven't gotten there yet, but I think I see the lever that made you interested in me, and that is a certain similarity.
In other words, now that you've been thrust into the spotlight, you're quite enjoying it. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, my current analogy is I feel like a huge dahlia that is in full bloom, and
Wow.
I'm just freaking loving it.
Wow. Well, I've seen like big changes in you even just since we met, and I know the whole trajectory is not even that much longer. But even when we met, you agreed to talk to me and I agreed to let me record it, but I don't think we were at the place where you were going to share all of this with a national or international podcast audience. And then in the days leading up to this interview, you've been quite excited, if I can share that.
I am. Back in, I guess it was August of last year, I came out to my wife. That was the first person that I actually came out. Well, there were a couple of other incidents, and I've come out to some close friends, a handful. And there are people like you who became aware that I was gay despite me not having to slap a sticker on my forehead. And that's maybe 200 people. And now we're going to do 8 billion.
If we're lucky. I hate to break it to you, but the listenership is not quite that universal yet. But potentially, there's potential audience everywhere. Yes.
Yes.
Tell us just a little about yourself and why do you think I'm so interested in your story?
Well, I think I broke that. I think that you haven't talked to me much about your trajectory. But what I have heard, I think there are similarities. You've gone further in you've had a lot more time. But my guess is that just the fact that I'm doing the same trajectory you did in a compressed space may be part of your interest. I was the nerd. I was the guy that you would find at cocktail parties, standing in the corner with a glass of bourbon and hoping everybody would ignore me. And now look, here I am. And Doug 2.0 is I'm finding him fun. I keep worrying that I may be out of control, but nothing's come and smacked me in the face yet.
We'll rein that in. You're right. Like that is, yes. What was interesting to me about your story is how similar it is to so many. And yet you're doing it at a different age than most people, to put it bluntly. Yes. You're doing it when I think many people, if they hadn't done this exploration already, would probably just say, well, that's the end of that. It's too late. And you're proving that it's never too late, which I love. So tell us a little about like the trajectory of when did you actually realize this and what was it like your whole life leading up till then? Share how old you are if you don't mind.
I'm 84. Um,
Cool.
um, yeah, you have touched a couple of the hot buttons, and the big one is I'm not sure I've left myself enough space to make coming out worthwhile. Uh,
Mm,
I've done it. I'm out, but I haven't got a lot of time to take advantage of that. So there are sort of two things. Uh, One of which is, can I reach out like to individuals and in situations and make some contribution? And I'm hopeful that that's
mm-hmm,
true.
mm-hmm.
And the other is, can I grab some grand scheme and change the world? And I started out thinking, yeah, I'm going to do one of those. And now I just, maybe it's giving up, but I'm sort of taking the tantric uh, approach of trying to just get blissful and not screw around with it too much.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I mean, you are healing the world simply by like embracing your authenticity and exploring these desires and the tantra, like even just being an example of that is going to ripple outwards. But yes, you're also on this podcast. Maybe there's more to do. And my question to you, you said like, did I leave enough time to make it worth it to come out? I guess I would just ask like, so far since August, are you glad you came out?
Oh yeah,
Why?
uh, because I've stopped having that heavy weight to carry around. I've,
Mm,
as I said a moment ago, I feel like some huge florid flower that just is in full bloom. Uh,
mm,
and that weight of that I've carried around all these years just went away,
wow.
and I feel bigger by about twice. And I don't mean that physically. I just mean I feel much more comfortable in the space I'm in, uh, and yeah, I'm glad.
Beautiful.
You
Beautiful.
Rob, let me do something for you, and that is, I have not had anything evil happen to me.
Good.
I don't know. I've gotten into, in particular, one sort of tangle at a retreat. I did something that apparently you're not allowed to do in a gay men's retreat. Uh, I said to one guy, I really like the other guy's body, and
Hmm.
apparently it's objectification, and I
Hmm.
never heard the word before, and that sort of blew up the retreat for a whole day.
Uh-huh.
Just the one comment, gee, he's got a great body. Those were those words. And we had a little meeting the next day around the campfire, and we one of the topics was Doug and his doing that.
Uh-huh.
Everybody in the
Uh-huh.
whole retreat was like, "You stupid fuck,"
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
I still don't understand that. I would have thought that a gay men's retreat, saying to one guy, "The other guy's got a great body," would be the right thing to do,
Hmm. Hmm.
but
Well,
no.
it's interesting you bring that up, and I want to talk about this retreat and tell the story from the beginning. It is interesting you're going right there because what I can see in you is a bit of you know, nervousness about how to enter this gay lifestyle after so many
Oh,
years and not
yeah,
knowing some of the norms and kind of putting your foot in your mouth in terms of the culture at this
yes,
retreat. Whatever happened,
yes,
I don't know.
Yeah,
And so you're almost in your second adolescence, which many people experience when they come out later in life. It's just
yeah,
you're doing it at 84.
yeah. I mean, thank you, doctor. I mean,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
yeah, you hit it squarely. Uh,
Yeah.
I, I,
There's a learning
I, have,
curve.
I have used the terms. I'm the oldest guy in the room, and I am a baby about the norms of
Yeah. Right.
the environment I'm in. So
Yeah.
weird things happen, you know. And I don't mind that. It's just that when the results get a little ugly, then
Yeah.
uh, I have to
It
fix
makes
it.
sense. Sometimes the learning,
Yeah,
happens in a real context, and there's like, harm that
yeah,
happens and to be managed and held
yeah,
accountable.
yeah.
So tell us, let's start with this retreat. Like, tell everyone about what this retreat was, how you signed up for it, and if
Okay.
my memory serves me, like, this was your own coming out to your wife happened maybe after this, or tell
Yes,
us about
yes.
how that all happened.
Okay. You asked me before, and I'm going to double back if you don't
Okay,
mind. And
please.
that is, I knew, as every bi guy or gay guy does, at about age 12, that something was a little weird about me. Uh,
Uh-huh.
I'm sneaking in at age 12 or 13 to sleazy magazine stores and finding men's physique magazines up in the back corner. But if you will allow me, I'll comment that back then there wasn't much about being gay or being homosexual or whatever you want. I mean, the words were homosexual, faggot, queer, and there's probably one other. And it was very, very hidden. So I didn't know I was homosexual. I thought I just had this weird side gig that I did. And
Hmm.
I sort of played that game quite successfully for years. I mean, nobody in high school or junior high school called me a faggot or homosexual or whatever. I've been successful in my life in appearing to be straight, and that carried all the way up. Uh, and I've had some really neat weekends with guys, but it's oh, this is my side hustle.
Mm.
It's not, oh, freak, I'm homosexual. It's like, oh, I like guys, and every once in a while we do this thing, and uh,
So
I,
every once in a while, like, when you were what age were you doing exploring that throughout your
oh,
life?
yeah. I didn't really get physical with anybody until I was in college.
Uh-huh.
Uh, uh,
And then was
and
it consistent through your life, or was it like mostly when you were younger and then you got married and it changed, or?
no, actually, it hung on. It's something that I did infrequently, but love doing. And I get together with a guy on the weekend, and really, but
Uh-huh.
I still, you know, denial's the big word, I suppose, but it wasn't a process of going, I'm gay, but I'm not going to tell anybody. It was that didn't, I didn't admit to myself, and I didn't really understand that I was homosexual.
Mm.
It was this side hustle thing,
Yeah.
and I really, really believed that. I mean,
Yeah.
when the day that I got married, if you'd asked me if I was homosexual, I would have said no.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I got this little thing going on the side, but no, I'm not.
Right.
And and I've really carried that on through my life, and it's okay. Let me break from that
Well, wait, before
conversation.
you break from that, can I ask you a question? How,
Sure.
like, how do you view your sexuality now? You said gay multiple times. You did throw in a bi in there. How do you, categorize it if you can?
Oh, I mean, the show's called Two Bi Guys. I better call myself bi, or we're going to
You
be in
know,
really
you
big
certainly do
trouble
not.
here.
certainly do not have to call yourself bi. We've expanded beyond the binary.
Okay, no, I think the answer is that, but being bi, as any other human characteristic, is a bell curve,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know where I am on that.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I haven't. I got to, when I go to the gym, which I do 2 or 3 days a week, there are women parading around in these tight leggings, and I got to tell you, there's some asses there that are worth, medals, and I, my tongue's hanging out about that as much as
Okay.
it is about the guys with the muscles and
Okay.
So I, I, I you probably somewhere along the line brought the idea of being bi up, and I buy it. I think that's where I am.
Interesting. Interesting. But has your most of the desires or currently
Yeah,
are they mostly directed towards men?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it, I really wonder what would happen if I got myself in a position where I could actually have physical sex with a woman. Uh, I think I'd go for it. I think I'd be happy to do
Mhm.
it.
And
Uh,
if you want to share, what was your intimacy and relationship with your wife like, or what is it like, or what was the
It was it,
trajectory?
it was fine. It was great. It was adventurous at the beginning, and it has petered out into nothing. We're both
Uh-huh.
84, and we've been doing this for a long time. So we just don't have sex anymore. World, don't hear that. All right, but I did answer your question.
Okay.
Um, so the deal is that I have to try to understand what I am abstractly,
Uh-huh.
and I really know that it's stronger toward guys. I mean, when I watch porn, I watch gay porn. I mean, come on, and uh, but where would it go if I actually had the opportunity to have sex with a girl, with a woman? I think I'd be happy to do it.
All
I
right.
mean, I think I would
Too
be
bad there's
happy
no
in
retreat for that.
that there is not any issue for
Well, BFF,
that I
someday.
know about. Tell me about it if you know about. Uh,
BFF, come to the next
yeah.
BFF.
Okay. All right. That's a
Just
long
saying.
trip. Long
There's an
trip.
episode coming up about that.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so you were going to say something else, or I want to hear about the retreat. If you remember your other thought.
Uh, I don't. But your fascination about sort of how I fell out. It seems to be centered around Eastern Mountain. Okay. I'm going to
Well,
do this
it's
for.
because I love Easton Mountain. So when I found out it happened there, I was amazed. It's a very spiritual place, and this is a spiritual story. But also, I just found it, well, I'll let you tell it, but the
Okay.
fact that this was your first experience and you just kind of dove in the deep end. I mean,
I
there's
did.
a movie in it. I think we got to make a movie about it.
You
Okay,
keep saying that. Who's going to star in it? Robert Redford? No. All right.
we'll find
Let
something.
me. I sort of had a speech put together about this. I was watching some gay porn. There's a guy, Davey Wavy, makes the best gay porn in the business, and I was watching one of his things. And when it was over and the cum shots are done, up came up came an advertisement for a thing called Devotion, which was a 5-day gay men's retreat at Eastern Mountain, which is, for those of you who don't know, is a gay resort, if you can call it that, north of Troy, New York. And the announced themes were tantra and BDSM. Well, I have some clue about what BDSM, or I did, and I'd never seen the word tantra before, and something happened in my head, and I said, I got to go to that.
Hmm.
I'm completely in the closet. Nobody in the world knows I'm gay,
Wow.
and suddenly this thing hit in my head. But I was a little worried about it, and the worry was that I could physically keep up with the thing for 5 days. And the other was that I really didn't want this 83-year-old guy to screw it up for other people, to
Hmm.
get in the way. Uh, so I wrote to Davey and emailed to Davey and told him that. And he came back with a really lovely email response that said, you got to do this. It could be transformative for you. He actually used that word. And my only worry for you is that the property is quite hilly and you might have trouble doing that. Well, we solved that. Everybody else walked up and down the mountain, and I drove up and down the mountain. So that was the end of that problem. And so I said, okay, I'm going. And I lied to my wife.
Hmm.
I told her I was going up there to help an acquaintance rewire his summer house. And I left a book on house wiring so where she could see it for a few days.
Smart.
And off I went.
Cool.
And tell me when you want to break. But I was driving up to New York Thruway,
Yeah.
uh, and I had left getting there way too late, as I always do. And so I'm driving fast. And every time I get to an exit, I say, what the hell am I doing? I have no idea what I'm getting into. And I better turn around at this exit and go home. And I
Mhm.
just didn't get it done.
Wow.
So I wound up at the hilly driveway going up into Easton Mountain. And regrettably, I didn't have any idea what the layout of the thing was. So the first thing I got to was a sign that said parking. So I said, okay, I got that, and drove into this space, got my cane out, and started to clomp down the hill. And by this time, it's 10 of 5. And I thought I was due there at 5. But it turns out that the guy who was leading it thought I was due there at 4:30.
Ah.
I got to the facility at 10 to 5. By the time I finally get all in, it's 10 after 5. They're in a third building called the Temple, which looks like a New England Methodist church with no steeple. And they are just closing up on the typical thing of you get in the middle of the circle, tell everybody who you are, where you're from, why you're there, what you hope to gain, and then we'll all have a group hug, and then we'll do the next guy.
Uh,
And they were doing the last guy. So I am by this time standing with my back to the double doors at the far end of the room, and I haven't announced myself yet. And the leader said, "Are we done? We got everybody?" And I sort of from the doorway went, "Yeah, one more." And the first thing that happened to me is now I'm in the middle of this circle, and I know what it's about. I know the things you have to talk about. So I did the why I'm here, what I'm doing speech, and everybody gave me a group hug.
what'd you say? What'd you say?
All right, I can do that.
If you
Let me
remember.
yeah, sort of. I said, I'm 83 years old. I'm not out. I wasn't at the time. Uh, I'm married. I've been married for 55 years. I'm here to try to see if I can figure out what the gay community is like, what it is like to be among a group of guys that I know are all gay,
Mm.
and how they interact with one another, and how I should interact with them. We talked a moment or two ago. There are tank traps in that I have found, and
Mm.
uh, what am I hoping to do? And I remember saying, figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I remember I included that phrase in my
Mm.
announcement. And the rest of it, sort of prosaic, but
Yeah.
uh,
So
I was very much there. And this is like the first words out of my mouth
yeah,
in a gay environment in my entire life.
right.
And so,
Crazy.
yeah, it really was. I mean,
Right.
and
You went from an internet ad to not telling anyone to just plop yourself in the middle of this group. And like, I mean, I have more questions about the weekend, but like, what did it do for you to be amongst gay men for this weekend? Like, how did that experience change you? And then we can get into the details.
I really have to sort of go to the side a little bit and try to. Doug 2.0 started to evolve there. Uh, I would have told you that I would be hiding in the corner going, no, 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 no. I want to keep my clothes on. No, 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 don't touch me. All that shit. And it turned out, if I may, that I was sort of leading the gang.
Uh-huh.
uh, it's time to get your clothes off. Oh, yeah, it's time to get physical with BDM toys. Yeah, let's do that.
Mhm.
I would have thought that doing the things that we did those few days would require a lot of me going, gotta get myself organized and let me do that. And there was none of that. It was just like,
Yeah. Why do you think you had that expectation, and why do you think you actually ended up just jumping right in?
okay, doctor, tell me why. When I think about that, and I think about, what has evolved as Doug 2.0, I don't have, Jesus. I mean, I really, really don't understand it. And
Uh-huh,
I'm very comfortable with it. And, I'm
uh-huh.
doing this freaking podcast.
Yeah,
And something just clicked somewhere in my head
uh-huh.
when I saw that ad, and it has driven the whole arc of my evolution since then.
Yeah. Divine, download, divine inspiration.
God, yes. I mean, if I believed in that kind of thing, yeah. But but the thing that makes me really feel weird about that is that as it was going on, I had no feeling of driving myself to do it or showing off or any of those things. It was just, okay, it's time to get your ass spanked.
Uh-huh,
Fine.
uh-huh, uh-huh. I wanna hear about the details of that, but also, like, you keep mentioning Doug 2.0. How does Doug 2.0 feel, like, in your body? How do you feel now? And if you can compare that to Doug 1.0.
I love it. I mean, it's this bigger, lighter person and a half that just doesn't have the feeling of being bound up tight the way Doug 1.0 did. I
Mm,
just like,
mm,
I've said I feel like some sort of huge flower that is exaggeration, but it's on the
beautiful.
spectrum of.
Yeah,
I really feel different. I really feel just bigger, opener.
lovely,
But
lovely,
yeah, lovely,
lovely.
lovely. Thank you.
I love it. So now tell us a little about some of the tantric or other sexual or intimate experiences you had at that retreat, and then just briefly, and then we'll move on to other stuff.
Okay, there are three things that happened that I think are sort of worth reporting, and the first one is we had this little exercise right after the group hug thing, and it was pairing up and completely clothed, and just sort of passing your hands over the guy and looking him in the eye and feeling what his body looked like. And I got lucky. We did three of them, and I got lucky. And the three guys that I got to do it with turned out to be important in the retreat in odd ways. Uh, but the event that sort of was weird, and it's been very important to me, is the first guy said, "Don't touch my face." That was his thing. You know, what's it called? Uh,
Boundary.
Boundary. Okay. And we got going, and we got, I'm messing around with just feeling him out, feeling his hair, feeling his ears, and he seemed to soften up as one does in these environments. And I thought, I think I got him. I think he's gonna be happy to have me. And I just ran my fingers down the sides of his jaw, and he didn't do anything in particular. And I thought, okay, I've learned something there. Boundaries are set, but if you get into it, they can flex. Uh, 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 uh.
You actually learned something else later.
Well, three days later, I was talking to the facilitator, and he said, "Oh no, boundaries are rock hard. You can't mess with them. You can't violate them." And the guy that I had that little episode with was standing about 4 or 5 feet away, and I said, "No, I got through his boundary, and he seemed to be fine with it." And I called him over, and so the three of us are there, and I said, "I did that thing you said not to touch your face, and it felt like we were good, and I felt that I could, sort of get the two of us would get something out of me just sort of edging into your boundary." And he looked at me. He looked at me and said, "Oh, I just hate it."
Mm.
And I went, "Oh
Mm.
fuck," you know. So that was my first lesson
Good lesson.
about
Yeah.
gay conduct.
Good lesson. Yeah. Well, and good for you to be open to that accountability and hearing him out and having that discussion.
Yep. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and it was, for me, it was an introduction to the fact that there are things in the gay community that you got to pay attention to because they're a little different than what's outside.
Uh-huh. Well, and I mean, it's what it speaks to me a little bit is like, in a sex party atmosphere space,
Mhm.
consent and boundaries are, to quote what you said, rock hard all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
But there is a sense in like heterosexual dating and like feeling things out with a woman in the way
yep,
that I was brought up, where it's like you it was more of a thing to just kind of feel it out and not be explicit. And I hate, like, looking back, I hate that all of us were brought up to do it that way. I wish I could have talked about it more, but I did feel like you don't talk about it. That's not sexy. You just
that's something
are in
you
the energy and you feel it out.
it's something you do with your fingers, you know.
Yeah, and they'll say no if they don't want it, but actually that's not, you know, gay men have a culture that is very consent forward for various reasons, and it is
Yep,
a very useful thing to learn no matter where you go, because then you learn that, like, the more you
yep,
talk, the more intimacy and connection there can be.
yep.
He if you had actually you learned something from this, it's great, but if you had said, can I run my hand on the sides of your
Uh-huh,
face?
uh-huh.
I think there's a fear that that would kill the moment, but actually it can enhance the moment regardless of his answer, yes or no. He might have said no, but actually, can you do this thing that we didn't talk about? Or maybe he would soften, who knows? But the talking about it is a good lesson.
You've sort of edged into something that I think I've learned, and that
Uh-huh.
is you got to keep the vocal channel open. And I was
Uh-huh.
sort of I sort of grew up in a culture where you don't talk, you just get your hands and your fingers and your dick into
Right.
the thing and do it.
Right.
And you don't talk. And
Right.
and it's been, I haven't had enough time, enough opportunities to really make that work, but I understand it. And
Hopefully you will.
I think I got it.
Good.
And the weird thing about Eastern Mountain was the first 30 seconds of my first exercise was that,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
30
Yeah. Yeah.
seconds, 3
Yeah.
minutes, but I blew that norm.
Yeah.
Didn't know
Yeah.
I'd done. I mean, I knew I'd done it, but I thought it was okay. And 3 or 4 days later, I get smacked in the face with it, and now
Yeah.
I understand it, and I'm good with it. Okay, things that happened at Eastern Mountain.
Yeah. Tell us about the tantra where you kind of lost yourself.
Okay,
That was
that's
interesting.
that's that's where I was going.
Cool.
Uh, the first full day, we had this sort of uh, side meetings about what's going to happen that day and what to expect, and the guy, one of the leaders, was doing our group, and he got into what is tantra, and Doug is sitting there going, huh? What, what? Because as I've said casually, I never did anything spiritual in my life. I mean, not ever anything. And suddenly this thing started to happen. And by the time the retreat was over, I had this weird feeling that they'd opened the door about a quarter of an inch and I could see a bright light behind it, but I didn't know what was going on. And I've
Mm.
got a pile of tantra books on my desk now about 6 inches high. I've been
Wow.
working on it ever since. Uh, so the deal was we did these side things and we had breakfast, and then and I got to tell everybody else, Eastern Mountain is a great facility for this sort of thing. They've got this great room that's about 40 by 60. Uh, and so we all got into there, and they put some mats on the floor and they paired us up. And as a side statement, they were very careful to pair us, not let us pick
Uh-huh.
somebody. And that taught me a lot, because I would have, as everybody else in the room would have, picked a guy by appearance or some other,
Uh-huh.
outward character. And I learned, at one point I was working with a really overweight guy. He's on the massage table and I'm trying to give him a massage. And when I approached this situation, I thought, oh, it's going to be ugly. And he was into massage. And it was like just this thing, every time I do something with my hands, you could just feel him go, oh. And
Mm.
the fact that he was overweight just sort of done thing. And
Uh-huh.
so there was a real learning curve in that. The physical body ain't the thing,
Cool.
and that came along. But I want to
Love
get
it.
back.
Love it.
I want to
Okay,
get
yes.
back.
Tell us about tantra.
Yeah, tell us about tantra.
Come on, we're
That's,
dying to hear.
no, I don't want you to die. So shut up and let me talk. Anyhow, I'm sorry. Uh,
We haven't even talked about your shirt yet. Come on. Okay. We'll get there.
you're going to explain the shirt.
I will.
Um, when we get to the late night activities in Baltimore, you
Uh-huh.
can tell me.
Uh-huh.
Anyhow, the first group exercise that we did is they paired us up and they say, get in the middle of one of these mats and sort of introduce each other again, and some things, establish boundaries, decide how much of your clothes you're going to take off, and talk about what you're going to do to give each other pleasure. And so my partner and I, and I'm sorry, I didn't even catch his name.
It's okay. We should keep his name out of
You know,
it.
well, see, now you're putting boundaries on. Um, I'm having so much fun here. Uh,
I love it.
uh, so this guy and I got in the middle of the mat, and he he said his boundaries. He said he was going to take all his clothes off except his briefs, and his boundary is he didn't want my hands inside the briefs. And so we talked about, just we're going to try to give each other pleasure, and he had already figured out that I have some agility problems. So said, "Do you want to do this standing up or on the mat?" And I said, "Well, I think we'll do better if we're lying down." And he said, "Can you get down on the mat?" And I went thud, and I went down, and the two of us got just cuddling and just doing, I guess you call it self massage. The idea of giving each other pleasure. And we had, I think, 20 minutes to do it. And we were some seconds in. And I've said 3 seconds, and that's ridiculous, but less than a minute in my memory. And suddenly, the entire world fell away. All the noise, all the light, all the people standing around staring.
Everyone's watching you, right? In a circle. Yeah.
Dozen people standing around watching. And it just all fell away. And the universe became our two bodies and our four hands.
Mm.
And when they had a little handbell that they rang at the end of 20 minutes. And when they rang that, I literally had to swim up from 30 feet down.
Wow.
And suddenly, I got to the surface and there all the noise and the people and the lights. And at that point, I had never, the thing about Tantra, we'd spent 10 minutes at the little meeting at the beginning. And 2 or 3 weeks later, I was reading one of these books, and there's a chapter on how to do a two-person tantric massage. And it's, find a nice place to you can be on, get the room temperature and color and lighting comfortable, and they want you to put on Mom Tantra music and have a tantric art on the walls and all that. But the point is, they get the two of you down on this comfortable surface and just pleasure each other. And I went, "What the hell? I've been there," and that's when I connected back and realized that first exercise had been a tantric experience, a serious one. Now, a baby one, 20 minutes of, but I had no lever to call that tantric when it happened.
Right.
It's just
but
2 or 3,
But it sounds like that experience opened something up in you and an interest in, like, this has been, of all the things we've talked about, an interest that you've bought a bunch of books about and done a deeper dive into, and it's calling to you in some way, in a spiritual way.
Yeah. And this is, Doug 1.0, as I said, didn't have a spiritual bone in his body. And I was of the group that says I haven't got time to waste on that.
Right.
I'm gonna be a practical human being.
Good for you.
No, I mean that's the way I led my life, and then now I'm Doug 2.0, and I haven't got this figured out, and I don't know that you can figure out tantra, but reading the books, trying to figure it out.
It's never too late to try, and to try to find your connection or spirituality, whatever it is, whatever you use to connect. It doesn't really matter how much time there is left to explore it.
No.
If you can get there, it's amazing.
the, what I have gotten to, Rob, is
Yeah.
uh, just tantra is, as it is done in American gay society, it's tantric sex, and that's all. But tantra is this huge universe enveloping. There is this thing called the universal light, and that is the universe as we understand it. And the tantric thing is you and I are part of that.
Mm.
We are clones of that, which means that you are perfect and I am perfect. And I'm trying to get my head around that.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Really, I'm working on trying to get my head around it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, and I mean, I have a few more questions and we have to move on in a minute, but I know that like for me, this brings up my psychedelic journeys, which feel very related to my
Oh,
queerness. And when you talk about tantra, I know we've also discussed your interest
okay.
in psychedelics as well, which like we don't have time to go into those stories today, but is there anything about your interest in that that's related to this spiritual practice of finding yourself and exploring tantra? Do you feel it's connected to?
Wow. You have done some things to me. No, I'm serious. You've gotten ahead of me because you've been there for a while. Uh,
Well, when you talk about the world falling away and it's only our two bodies and we had to swim back to the surface,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's like what a psychedelic experience can feel like. I mean, you had one without medicine.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You asked that question, and I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't made that connection. But you've put that in my head now, and
Hmm.
I'm going to have to work it out. Whether my interest in psychedelics is about spirituality or whether it's just, let's see if we can get off on that.
Hmm. Has anything about your identity or queerness come up when you've taken
No,
psychedelics? No.
uh, no. I mean, I've taken psychedelics in a situation where everybody's in a cuddle puddle and
Okay.
using your hands. Uh, eh,
It's not how I
and,
do
and,
it.
well, I mean, whatever. In the resorts I've been, there's sort of like limits on what you can.
Yeah. Good.
Uh, but except the drugs to remove your limits or certainly push them back. Uh, Boy, I love the question you have asked, and I'm not prepared with an answer, and
Okay.
I mean I
Okay.
don't even have an answer inside my head.
Well,
So
I'm
come back.
enjoying seeing you process this question. There's clearly a lot there. We're learning from watching you process.
Well, I hope almost anyhow. Look, come back to me in the
Well,
next podcast, and
yes.
I'll try to have an answer for you then. But
Okay.
right
You
now,
can come back and we'll
those
check in on all this stuff in a few months.
the, those two things, the my interest in tantric spirituality, which I'm stumbling around in this weird world, is one thing. But the drug thing is so far has been separate for me.
Okay.
It's been take your very tightly controlled life and let go of it
Yeah.
for
Uh-huh.
an hour or two or so.
Well, there you go. I think you just answered my question because that makes so much sense. Take your tightly controlled, tightly wound life and let go. And that's what psychedelics can do. That's what coming out seems to have done. I mean, you described Doug 1.0 to Doug 2.0. It is kind of like letting go of all that tightly woundness by coming out and exploring these things. So maybe they haven't
There's
been directly connected, but there's certainly an overlap in what they're doing in
there
your lives, in your
there
life.
is
Yeah.
there's clearly a parallel,
Yeah. Yeah.
and your question is sort of does one directly drive the other, and you shocked me or caught me off guard with the question.
Yeah, but I like seeing the connect. There's clearly a overlap or a
Oh, yeah,
connection.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Something is currently happening inside my brain, and
Okay. We'll check
this.
back in as you process. I always tell my coaching clients like stuff comes up during a session that only
Yeah,
gets processed afterwards.
yeah.
So we'll have to
Okay.
check back in with you.
I'll put that on the to do stack, and we'll see what
Okay.
happens.
Okay. Okay. Thank you all for listening to this episode of Two Bye Guys with Doug Moffitt. Hope you enjoyed it. It's a little different than most of them. There's a bit more coming up here, but there's also about 15 minutes of bonus content with Doug available only on Patreon. There are 2 sections of bonus content. The first is about how we met, which was at the HOW annual gathering. HOW stands for Husbands Out to Wives. It's a lovely organization. I am now on the board as the gathering guy. So I will be planning the next gathering in San Francisco in October of 2026. You should come join HOW if you are a husband who's out to your wife. If that describes you, you should check out this bonus content. We talked about what that gathering meant for Doug. He actually didn't have a very huge or deep experience the way some other guys did, except for a few important moments that were pretty interesting. And then there's another section of bonus content where we talked about Doug's black lace shirt that he is wearing. You can also see the full video on Patreon, so you can see the black lace shirt he's wearing. It's a bit see-through. It also stems back to the HOW conference. We met this hot bartender on a night out who was wearing a shirt like that, and Doug wanted to try it out for himself. So check out patreon.com/Robert Brooks Cohen. You can see Doug in his shirt and hear the whole story, as well as hear more about HOW. And now we will pick it up with the tail end of our HOW conversation, plus a couple other things with Doug. Enjoy. There are many guys who are, in HOW is guys who are married to women, husbands out to wives. And so
Yes.
whatever they end up exploring or not, many remain monogamous. Many are in relationships where this doesn't become like a realized part of their lives. Maybe they're out to their wives and that's as far as it goes. And a lot of the guys just don't have a space to talk about it, and they live in
Mm-hmm.
certain parts of the country. And so this is like their
Mm-hmm.
one space to talk in person. And it just speaks to how powerful that can be. Because when you're not getting it elsewhere, it's just so validating and affirming to be in physical space with people. It sounds like you are doing that. You've been to 4 retreats now. So you're continuing that exploration and finding that elsewhere, which is beautiful. And I'm curious about weren't out to your wife at the time of HOW, but you've come out to her since. Like when and how did that happen?
Okay. I went to a small retreat in July of last year, down in West Virginia, and there was a guy there, and he was. I've come to the conclusion that there are some people that are just so completely comfortable in their skin as gay people, and that they sort of radiate something in the atmosphere. You talk about a guy that walks into the room, and the whole environment sort of seems to warm up. Well, there was one of those guys there, and he was an accomplished masseur and he's just finished his training as a gay counselor, and he and I just hooked up at early on, and then we had uh, a plant medicine evening, and the next day I've heard this thing about neuroplasticity, that you sort of open to suggestion in the next couple of days after plant medicine. Well, the next day he said, "Doug, I want to talk to you." Oh, what? And we went and sat by the dining table, and he said, "You're going to sit and write a letter to your wife." And my first reaction is, "Fuck no." But he said, yeah, I want you to sit and today and write a letter to your wife. however you want to do it. So I put it off and put it off, and everybody else went to bed, and I got my journal out, and the issues that I thought I understood about coming out to my wife. And the next day, he got together with me again and said, "Did you write the letter?" And I said, "Yeah." And tried to hand it to him. He said, "Well, I don't want to read it. I just want you to have concretely gotten what's in your head about what these are down on paper." And the other thing that he did on that second day was really important to me. And that is, he looked at me at one point and he said, "Doug, you're not gay." And I went, "What?" And he said, "And I'm not gay." And I went, "I don't know where this is going now." And his point was, don't try to figure out a way to make Doug fit some mold that you think of as being a gay persona.
Mm-hmm.
And there is in the gay community now this really sort of whatever phrase, develop your authentic self. And I think that's very sort of, if I were trying to come up with a phrase, it would be the real me, not authentic self. But anyhow,
many labels, one concept.
yeah.
Okay, beautiful. I love that.
But
I love that.
Okay, let me finish up here.
Yes, please.
And this is now late July, and I don't know whether he did it in a Machiavellian, I'm going to get this guy hooked, wound up so that he comes out to his wife, or whether he was just being him and in his counselor thing the day after the plant medicine. I just don't know which it was. And it really doesn't matter because the result would have been the same. My birthday is August 7th. Then I came out to my wife. So it's like a week, 10 days after this conversation. Would I have done it otherwise? Fuck alone knows. I don't. But I got it done, and it turned out to be a non-event.
How'd she react?
Not much. I mean, the whole conversation we had over a bottle of champagne, and it lasted a few minutes, and it was, what's the word? It happened at a sort of a cocktail conversation level, and it ended with her saying, "Oh, I've got some issues about this," and that's back August of last year, and we have not talked about it since.
Oh, interesting.
Which really, really is a bad thing.
Well, maybe you can share this podcast with her and it'll open the door to a conversation. So she doesn't know you've been going to these other retreats? Or you've told her and she doesn't ask about it, or what's the deal?
It started out being covered up somehow. But the last couple of retreats, I said, I'm going on a retreat. I've been relatively open about it, and she doesn't want to hear about it. So
a little don't ask, don't tell. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Sergeant.
Well, I'll check in with you on that one again next time we talk too.
Okay.
My computer's about to die. There's construction on my roof, so we're gonna have to call it there today. But I'll give you the final word. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story with everyone. Who knows who it will touch and for what reason? For me, it was just like, look at what you can dive into and explore. It's never too late to have these experiences and be your real self, or whatever the version you want to call it is. Any final thoughts before we wrap?
Yeah. Have I got a minute?
Sure. 1 minute.
After the Eastern Mountain retreat, I came back to Philadelphia area, and I've got a lot of piercings, and I sort of was in with my piercer, and we've been talking about doing a body suspension for a couple of years. I've done about 4 or 5, and I was in his shop one day, and I said, we've been mouthing about this. When are we going to do it? And I assumed it was a big deal. You had to go up and hang a pulley in a tree and all that. And he looked at his watch and he said, "How about 2:00?" And I went, "Well, what?" And he said, "Yeah, yeah." He lives about a block and a half from the shop, and he's got a thing in his backyard, which is like a giant version of a kid's A-frame outdoor thing, except it's got a pulley in the middle. And so about 2 hours later, I was hanging from this thing, twisting in the wind, and talking to my little coterie of 6 or 7 people that are sitting there. Except that, of course, one of them was streaming it on Instagram.
You got a lot of views.
I got 800,000 views. And that's when I sort of went, oh my God, this thing spreads a whole lot more than I thought it did, because 800,000 views.
Yeah.
There's this old guy swinging around the wind.
What's the moral of this story? Why did you bring it up?
I brought it up because, you've talked about, we both talked about where this podcast is going to spread. And I don't know what your experience is. I'm sure you've got statistics about your previous shows, but the internet to me is, sort of a fascinating place, which has turned out to be not at all what I expected when I first met it back in the green screen days. I thought it was going to be a sort of where scientists get together and talk, and it turns out, not all that. So I don't know what my point is here, but
yeah, moral of the story.
Moral of the story
it will spread. This will spread far and wide potentially.
Yeah,
when you put yourself out there, unexpected things can happen, and when you don't put yourself out there, nothing happens.
Right, and if you you're doing it, as in this case, you should have some feeling about it, some weight about it, some. My line was, I'm going to do this podcast, and I should feel all uptight about it, and I don't even feel sweaty.
Amazing.
So.
Yeah, I feel that in emailing you about this, it's actually been empowering for you and exciting and opening something up that we'll see what that is over the next few weeks and months. But getting yourself to the place where you don't care if people see this stuff and hear this stuff is an amazing place to be at any point in your life. And also the body modification stuff was on my list to talk about. We don't have time. My computer is about to die. I'm at 4%, but I will link that video if you want in the show notes so people can see it. Are you okay with that? So if you want.
Yeah. I mean,
okay. So
it's
you
out
check the show notes. It's out there. It's public anyway. So you can see what Doug is talking about. And he's into this body modification stuff, which might or might not be related to everything we've talked about. We'll cover it next time. But and I hate to cut you off, but my computer's going to die. So thank you, Doug, for being here. Your story is lovely, and I'm glad we got to share it here. And we'll make a movie someday.
Boy, you keep saying that. And I don't know where you're going with it, but
we'll see. No promises in the movie industry, no promises, but I think it would be a good one. All right.
You're the producer. You're down to 2%. Now what are you going to do?
Thank you, Doug. I'm pressing stop. Thanks for being here.
Okay.
Two Bi Guys by One Bi Guy is produced and edited by me, Robert Brooks Cohen, and it was created by me and Alex Boyd. Our new logo art is by Caitlin Weinman. Our music is by Ross Mincer. To help support this podcast, visit patreon.com/Robert Brooks Cohen. You'll get full video episodes, early access, and bonus content. Visit robertbrookscohen.com to learn more about my coaching, my book, and my stand-up comedy. And thanks for listening to Two Bi Guys by One Bi Guy.